So thank you everyone for joining us this morning at our Breakfast Club on leadership and collaboration. So the Breakfast Club is the leadership event series for the Leadership Academy, which is brought to you by the Wheel, which is Ireland's National Association for Community, Voluntary, Social Enterprise and Charitable Organisations. And the Leadership Academy is a space for leaders at any and all stages of their own leadership journey to take the next steps on their journey. So the Breakfast Clubs are designed to help you to take some time out to think about the bigger issues and to connect with other people in your sector. Please note the event is being recorded, and if you do take some pictures, we'd love if you tagged us on LinkedIn or anywhere that you put them up. But we would like to thank our lovely host Longford Women's Link for hosting us this morning. I've never been down here, we've heard so much about it. Longford Women's Link are very active in the Wheel, and it's great to actually, I saw Tara speak at the summit last year, which is coming up in a year, so it's great to be down here. And this morning we're going to talk about collaboration. So collaboration is one of the words we hear all of the time in the sector. But what does it mean in practice in our organisations? Collaborating on what, with who, for how long? And it has a lot of nuance and questions to it, like how do we create and shape compelling visions that encourage the right people to collaborate with us? How do we bring people to the table that are reluctant to be there, but we know we need them there? And how do we make sure that power dynamics are fair in collaboration? So I don't know the answer to these questions, but today I found you two people who do know the answers to these questions. So I'm going to read their bios because it's something we don't do in our sector, is actually lean into like the incredible work that people do. So bear with me while I read from my script because it's very long. So on my right is Tara Farrell. She is an NGO leader specialising in strategy, organisational performance, governance and equality, with extensive experience at CEO level in the non-for-profit sector. As Chief Executive of Longford Women's Link, she leads strategic development and equality-focused initiatives across a growing organisation of 70 staff. Tara brings significant board and governance expertise, currently serving as the chair of Irish Rural Link and holds roles across community, education and sports sectors. She's also a lecturer in equality and human rights and holds an MBA from the University of Galway. Did you guys know that about your team? Yeah, they did. Fantastic. I love to see that. And Anthony is on my left. So Anthony Burrows has a strong background in community and youth work, with experience over the past 12 years working across the community sector in roles spanning mental health promotion, youth advocacy, education and housing. This foundation has shaped his values-led approach to create meaningful social impact. He's currently the social value manager at CISC, where he supports the development and delivery of social value strategies across projects in Ireland and Europe. Anthony focuses on embedding measurable, meaningful impact into project delivery, ensuring alignment with client priorities, national frameworks and the needs of local communities. So two very interesting and different perspectives on collaboration. So I'm going to start, Tara, with you because we're here. So could you begin by introducing yourself and your own background, and I suppose how you got to where you are currently?
Thanks very much, and you're very welcome to Longford Women's Link. Delighted. You know my feelings on having things outside Dublin, Sharon, at this stage. So you're here now, got you here. So I'm Tara Farrell, CEO of Longford Women's Link, and I've worked in the sector probably for more years than I'd like to count at this stage, but I joined Longford Women's Link on a one-year contract in 2010. And here we are, many years later. But I suppose I've always had a passion for social justice and fairness and equality, and I've worked in the sector for a number of years in various different areas. I worked in Tallaght for a number of years on enterprise development. I worked on cross-border projects in Drogheda and Dundalk in the north. And then when I moved back to my hometown of Roscommon, I started working here in Longford and haven't left. But I have huge graw for this organisation and for the people in it and for the work that we do. And that's what keeps you going. That's what gets you out of bed every day when you see the changes that are being made. And we have an amazing team here that deliver fantastic outcomes for women and families on the ground. So it's something that I'm passionate about. I think if you're not passionate about what you do, it's very obvious, and it shows, it reflects in your work, and it reflects in how you engage with people, and you're not really being true to yourself either. So yeah, I suppose that's the kind of whistle-stop career. And then, you know, every so often you get these notions and you'll decide you'll go off and do a course somewhere or go back to college for a couple of years. And I did that a couple of years ago, went back to the University of Galway to do the MBA, and found that a really interesting experience because, and this is really coming from the non-profit sector, I think a lot of the time when you go to do like a business course or something like that, you're often, I suppose the feeling is, well, you learn so much from the private sector and you learn so much from the business sector. But I was very kind of strong at saying, you know, there's a huge amount of lessons to be learned from the not-for-profit sector. And I actually went back then to Galway last November and delivered a masterclass to the MBA students on the lessons that you can learn from the non-profit sector, given the resources that we have to deal with, the constraints that we're dealing with, the number of things that we have to do. Like, we are essentially a business. We do have to, at the very, very minimum, break even. And we are not for profit, but profit isn't a dirty word, you know, because if we don't break even and we don't have the right levels of income, you can't deliver the services. So there's a huge amount of lessons to be learned, I think, in the way that non-profits conduct themselves. And I think it's unfortunate that sometimes if there's one scandal in a charity, that taints the whole sector. Whereas we are really held to very high standards with the charities regulator, which is as it should be. Very happy to do that. The compliance, the governance, all of that, the structures are there. So we do hold ourselves to very high standards, and I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from that. So that's the lecture over now for this morning.
I wouldn't bank on it being over. I'd say there's probably more to come if we play our cards right. But thank you so much for that, and it's interesting that you set the scene as well for your own values and where you see yourself as a leader in this sector. So thank you for that. So Anthony, what about yourself? You've had a real round the houses.
Yeah, round the houses tour. Yeah. And I think it starts off with doing a social science degree in Maynooth. First of all, pleasure to be here. But started off in a social science degree in Maynooth, thinking that I was going to go into policy and go into government-led policy. And then I went on a volunteering trip to Peru, and literally at that point I was living in a home of 50 young people who were transported to hospitals, and they only had, like, it was only a 3-bed home that they were living in with 50 people in it. It was an incredible journey for myself, and at that point I realized that I wanted to work with people, I wanted to work in communities, I wanted to try to make a difference. And that really centered my values. Since then, I did a master's in youth and community work. And as Sharon said, I've kind of gone around the houses in terms of youth advocacy, working with the European Youth Forum in one of the largest advocacy bodies for young people in the world, to social housing, working as the national coordinator in kind of creating and supporting communities to create communities themselves, that they hadn't traditionally been able to build communities. And then also working in DCU with a widening participation in higher education and kind of looking at collaboration through that and the lens of collaboration, because it wasn't just DCU, it was Maynooth University, it was Athlone and Dundalk. So how did they all work together in competition with each other as general pieces as well? And since then, I've now worked in CISC. That was a random occurrence through LinkedIn. Somebody said, do you want to interview for a job with CISC? And looking at CISC, looking at their website, their background, their values aligned with my own. And the role kind of spoke to me, social value manager. How many other people have a class title like that? So I went for it, and since the past 2 years now, I've been able to drive change within CISC, to embed social value or social impact in what CISC do. So they don't just build buildings anymore, they also work with the wider community, and making sure that the legacy lasts longer than just the building itself.
So at a very high, so social value, the whole point is they are a for-profit organisation, but they're looking to make social value. And that's a really big concept that's moving into the sector. So at a very high level, what does collaboration mean to you in your role?
It's not one size fits all. That's for certain. Collaboration has different kind of lenses to it, whether it be collaboration with the ETB to support it, individuals to go into apprenticeship programs. So I have to collaborate with our supply chain, I have to collaborate with our colleagues in CISC, I have to collaborate with the ETB, and I also have to support that young person to be able to use their power to, if they've got a 2-week work placement, to take advantage of that work placement and to kind of have an opportunity to meet with a lot of people. So in terms of collaboration, it's not one size fits all. Then it's collaborating with their social enterprises. So we could easily kind of find a partnership, a supplier that does a job for us, that doesn't have any community output, but just does the job for us. Or we could work and build a relationship with a social enterprise that may take a bit longer to do, that needs an individual like myself that will build the foundations to be able to create that partnership with that social enterprise. One social enterprise is here today, Trias Press, Debbie from Trias Press. We are at the seedling stage of being able to work with Trias Press, but are hoping that it will be a foundation and it'll flourish into the future, because what they do is incredible work that we want to be able to support in doing so. So it's around procurement, but collaboration, again, it's nearly seen as it's a very common word, but it's nearly seen as a dirty word as well, because it can be seen as a power dynamic that we're collaborating with you. And I, in my role, want to make sure that collaboration, everybody knows the power structures that is taking place. That if it is CISC as the corporate, but we also want to do social good, and eventually we will be told that we have to have a social value in all of our contracts. So we want to be able to support the social enterprises so they have power as well, because we have to deliver the social impact.
Cool. So not one size fits all, and I think what I'm hearing from you as well is it can be like different directions, so you can collaborate up or down. And Tara, at a very high level for yourself, what do you...
Yeah, I mean, collaboration is easy if everybody gets along and everybody is,
As is life.
that doesn't always happen. And I suppose sometimes you're asked to collaborate for different reasons, and we would get, a regular amount of offers from various different bodies or groupings, but we know they're looking for a women's organisation, or they're looking for a domestic violence organisation, or they're looking for someone to tick a box. And you become very, very good very quickly at identifying who wants to collaborate with you meaningfully and who just wants to do it so that they can say they have women's organisation on their collaboration list. So for us, I suppose there's a couple of questions we would always ask is around collaboration. Does it align with our values? Is it a good use of our time? I mean, time, I know funding is a problem for everybody, but time is one of the most precious resources that we have here. Everybody is pushed for time. So if we're going to collaborate on a project or with another organisation or a group of organisations, is the time that we're going to invest in that worth the time that we're taking away from frontline services, from strategy, from whatever it is? So there's a series of questions that we have to ask ourselves about collaboration. But I think within the non-profit sector, sometimes you're often asked to be the kind of the little partner, the junior partner at the table. We better get somebody from the non-profit sector. And I think we've become quite good, and I think this is really important, and I think a lot of organisations should be doing this, is stating our expertise. And our expertise is very, very valuable. Like we've managers in the room here. I know Pamela's here from the Education and Training Manager nationally for the Domestic Violence Service. It's nothing they don't know about what they do. They're experts in their field. And we need to own that without we're not saying we have all the answers. Yeah. We're not saying that we can do this on our own. We can't. We absolutely want to collaborate. But we need that recognition in the sector of the skills that are in the sector and the expertise that's in the sector, because at the end of the day, we're problem solvers. We look at the problems and the issues that are going on in our communities and across the country, and we're trying to come up with solutions. And sometimes they have to be very creative because we don't have a lot of resources. But I think, and when I say we, I mean the sector, I'm not just saying Longford Women's Link, I think we've become very good at that. But I would like to see a greater recognition of the expertise that sits around the table when we look at the non-profit sector. So when we're looking at collaboration, it goes back to what you're saying about power, that we're not just sitting in the back corner and, we're there as the representative for the sector.
So that there's distinctions within collaboration. Some of it is partnerships, some of it is like service level agreement, that there's different ways of doing it. I love that. So when we were looking at this theme, I was very lucky to see you speak at the summit last year on what is probably the most innovative form of collaboration that I was blown away. I've told everyone about it. Would you tell everyone else about your collaboration that you've worked on here with Longford Women's Link?
Yeah, we set up a number of years ago as part of our domestic violence service. We set up an interagency group responding. The full title is Responding to the Risk of Domestic Violence Homicide in Rural Areas. And, you know, our main partner were the Guards. We're delighted to have Emer here today because Sergeant Emer Farrell spoke with me at the summit along with Natalie last year. And really what we were looking for was we all want positive outcomes for women and children that are living with domestic violence. That's what we all want as frontline organisations, whether it's the Guards, whether it's TUSLA, whoever it is. We all want to see positive outcomes, but we're all coming from different angles.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're maybe not deliberately, just because of the pressure and the level of work and the lack of resources, maybe not everybody was talking to each other the way we should have been at a number of years ago. So we've set up this interagency group, and what we wanted to do was improve outcomes. And that, going back to collaboration, that's really what you have to look at. If your collaboration isn't improving the outcomes for people that you're serving and people that you're supporting on the ground, you kind of need to look at your parameters. But anyway, but we set up this interagency group, and one of the first things that we did was we decided that we would run a training conference with Professor Jane Monckton-Smith on the 8-stage homicide timeline. So we wanted to provide that training and that information to frontline responders. So to the men and women who are going out every day in whatever guise, whether they're GPs, whether they're community mothers, whether they're social care, whether they're guards, whoever it is, and they're meeting women and children in that situation. And with the best will in the world, they may not know the dynamics that are going on because it's such a complex area. So we delivered that in Longford in 2023 to I think about 150 individuals from around 35 agencies. Then we delivered another conference again last September again in Longford. And it's been supported through the Community Safety Partnership and the Community Safety Initiative with the Department of Justice. So that's another really good example of collaboration, because the Community Safety Partnership, we're very lucky in Longford that we were one of the pilots. So we had our community safety plan set up since 2022, and domestic violence was named in that. So again, the importance and the benefits of collaboration is that when you're at the table, you can look for things to be named in plans, to put it, you're looking for things to be named in policy. So that's been a really, really positive outcome, and we've had some really good results, and particularly with the Guards. We have protocols now at the weekend around, we're a 9 to 5 service here in Longford from Monday to Friday. So what happens at the weekend when something happens? And we have that protocol now with the Guards in terms of accommodation, in terms of being able to support women out of hours.
There's no refuge in Longford.
There's no refuge in Longford. Yeah. It's in the planning stages. We're at site identification stage at the moment, but that does take a while. But there is a stakeholder group with ourselves, with CUAN, with the National Housing Agency, with the Longford County Council, and we are working very well together to try and get that up and running. We are looking at safe house accommodation as well, and we hope to have a safe house operational in the coming weeks, which would be great. But it's a long process. But again, it does come down to that positive collaboration.
And in the meantime, and I'm sorry for I didn't recognise Emer, but it's 6 o'clock on a Friday, and a guard gets called to upon what? Can you just tell them about the email? Was it the blue response email, the blue alert?
The Blue Link protocol.
Blue Link protocol. That's amazing.
So then the guards know where they can phone, where they can safely bring the woman to, but that's as a result. It might seem like a very simple thing, but that's as a result of collaboration between two agencies who are both doing very, very difficult work on the ground. Yeah. And it's a model that actually Meath Community Safety Partnership are looking now to set up an interagency group as well, Meath Domestic Violence Service as well. So we've been up to talk to them about that. And when we were looking for the funding initially, that was our aim. We said this is a pilot, this is a model that can be replicated like around the country. Yeah. And the more models like that we see, the better, because we're not going to improve anything unless we're all around the table.
It was just genius. It was so simple when you've missed a part, you're obviously so used to it. The team collate a list of details during the week for who are the best people to call at the weekends, and it gets sent out to all of the Gardaí on the Friday night, so that there's no, and if you've ever got stuck between two departments in the Irish system, you'll know how hard that is. It's genius. It was so clever. Anthony, what's your favourite collaboration or collaborative project that you've been working on that?
In CISC, I think it has to be Her Together. So Her Together is an academy based in Ballymun that supports young people to kind of go on the journey of hairdressing, but it's not just hairdressing or barbering, it's also confidence building. It's empowering the individuals to think that there's another part of their lives, another pathway that they can go down. Eileen was working in a van. It was a woman in a van and a team that was going to schools, that was going to kind of different community spaces to be able to run programs. She had then, through the support of DCC, been given a shell of a building, and with that shell of a building, she's like, well, how are we going to turn this into my dream space? And it was not through me initially, but through one of my colleagues who had kind of done one of her corporate events, her moneymaker events to support the funds. And through that, Leanne, my colleague, was inspired by Eileen, inspired by the mission, inspired by the vision, and as everybody else has said, had become Eileen. She is just an energy. And through that then I was introduced to the conversation. Eileen had a bit of cash to be able to turn it into something. CISC wanted to support her and turn it into something magic. And over the course of 5 months with a number of our supply chain partners, we've been able to turn that shell into an incredible space that is a hairdressing salon and an academy for young people. It is, I would say, the start of potentially a real regeneration of Ballymun, because Eileen is from Ballymun, she's lived, bred Ballymun, and she wants to bring a different aura to Ballymun. We're at CISC, we're not working in that geographical space. We're not claiming social impact or social value or any measurement from that interaction. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. And our supply chain partners got involved because it was also the right thing to do. It was, again, it came to us in a sense that Eileen had that space. So Eileen, as she would do, went up to Leanne, knowing that she was from CISC, and said, we've got this space, can you do anything about it? And that was the start of a collaboration. But it was also made it easier for CISC because that's what we do. We build buildings or work with our supply chain as a contractor to build buildings. So it was something that we were comfortable in doing. So it was an ask that we were comfortable in doing. That's something that I'm really, really excited about doing. And in fact, I've joined the board of Hair Together because I've been Eileened. And with my experience in the community and voluntary sector, I think I'll be able to support her on the board to be able to kind of branch it out to more community spaces. That is a perfect kind of an example of a collaboration for CISC. When somebody has an action, that somebody has a tangible outcome that we are able to support in, and that our team, who are not community practitioners, as Sharon stated, we're a profit-making organisation and everybody is an expert in engineering or architecture, not community development. So it's an easy task for them. It kind of pushed them forward. The harder ones then for me is when I get an email saying that, can you support us with funding, or can you support us with this? And it's sometimes then an unfortunate email that I have to send back to them that we can't, because if we do it for one, we have to do it for everybody, and it makes it really difficult. We have to have tangible outcomes. So in CISC at the moment, we use a tool called Thrive, which measures our social impact. So as I say, we're building a building, and within the geographical space, we want to have a lasting legacy. And we have a set of metrics for that, whether it be apprenticeships, whether it be working with social enterprise, whether it be community initiatives and environmental impact. And all of those metrics have proxy values attached to them. It's very exciting, I tell you, very exciting. But we can then put a social value plan together using those metrics. But coming into the role, I'm not a major fan of the value, the dollar of social value generation. I'm more involved and wanting to see impact. So when I'm working with my colleagues and they're filling out their Thrive platform, what's the impact? What's the comment? What's the impact? What's the story? What's the narrative? What is that young person who's been given the work placement? Where are they now? Are they gone into an apprenticeship? Are they going in to continue a work placement? Have they decided that they hate construction and want to get out? I want to know that story. I want to know the story around the social enterprise engagements. I told you about Trias Press. We're also working with Loaf Catering. We work with Loaf Catering because their Loaf Catering work with people who have autism and hoping to get those people who have autism into the workspace. So they're building their kind of confidence and also their work experience. But they also, as the title says, have sandwich sales. And we love sandwiches. So we want to procure from Loaf Catering. But we know if we procure from Loaf Catering, there's a generational impact on that, because we're changing the opportunities for those individuals, because Loaf Catering now have more money to spend on supporting those individuals in their journey to employment. I could go on, but in terms of linking that into collaboration, the narrative is that there is an inevitable kind of tick the box in terms of actionable plans, but it's the impact and it's that kind of relationship to create that narrative and that impact that is based on the collaboration with community partners.
That's really interesting. So you've both mentioned impact, as in you're looking at the end result of what you, as opposed to, oh, we get on great, we should like work together. And then also collaborating to your strengths, that you're not collaborating for the sake of collaborating, that you need a builder, so you go to a building organisation. And also that interesting thing about it isn't anymore about just throwing money at a problem. And I think under the old kind of concepts of corporate social responsibility, so many organisations try to kind of buy their way out of like actually engaging, whereas social value has brought this whole other aspect of like engaging. It's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's actually, and I think people want to see the results of their, you've mentioned that with the schools. So what to you is the benefits of collaboration?
The benefits of collaboration is that there's a partnership between two. The power dynamic, whether it be CISC or whether it be DCU. When I was in widening participation in higher education, it really is the roles and responsibilities that everybody is taking. It's also building the relationship. So if you work with a community partner in CISC, you're working with a community partner and you do a once-off project, good. But if you work with a community partner and build a relationship, like CISC is not going to leave that community. There's going to be another building in the future that is going to be needing to be built. And we've then developed a relationship that we can kind of continue that journey with you. And I think that means that you don't have to just build the foundations again. They've already been built, and you'll be able to strengthen the foundations once we're kind of doing another project and another project, which has definitely happened in projects in Dublin. We work with an organisation called Way to Work, which support young people who are coming from the care system and they want to get into an apprenticeship, any apprenticeship, not just construction, but for us, we work with the individuals getting into construction. That has been a long-term partnership, and it's only been a long-term partnership because we've been able to build a relationship with the colleagues within Way to Work. And I think that is so important within collaboration. It's not the power dynamic, it's the relationship, and making sure everybody is aware that it is an honest, genuine relationship and not something that is just ad hoc or tick the box.
The relationship, and I think as well, I'm hearing you say like the strategicness of it, that's probably not a real word, but the idea that it's long term, because as you're collaborating, you're spotting, it's not like the fund that's funded now, it stops, but that you'll see the next thing. What about yourself? What would you say is the biggest benefit to collaboration, or why it's so important to you?
For us, it's about, again, problem solving. And if you have many heads around the table, you're more likely to problem solve more efficiently. With your combining resources, and as I mentioned earlier, like time is such an issue for everybody. And if you have an issue where if you have 4 or 5 or however many organisations around the table coming at it from different angles with different suggestions, different experience, different, you do tend to come to solutions much more quickly, which benefits everybody. And I think, looking at that whole tick box side of things, and yeah, sometimes there is a little element of that, but for us, again, we're very careful that we're never funding led. So as I said, we do get approached every so often, and particularly with maybe bigger European projects, we might get a call for partners for this, that and the other. But very quickly, again, you can see, well, okay, there's money there, but it doesn't align with what we're doing. We'd have to change our model, change our way of working. We're not going to do that because we are very true, we're very aligned with our core values, with our founder values. And we've been operating for over 30 years on that basis. And what we always do is look, as you say, look ahead to what are the outcomes, what's going to be the impact. Impact is huge. What's going to be the impact on families, on women in this community? What's going to be the impact if we do this the way that we're doing it? But I think when you have positive collaboration and you're an equal partner around the table, and also that you can look at the table and say, is there someone missing from here? Because a lot of the time, we look at this particularly when we have a programme, the See Her Elected programme, which looks at women in local democracy. And, you look at who's here around the table, who's represented, but who's not. And how do we look at making sure that they are around the table, because we need to hear those insights and the expertise from there as well. That's not always easy. Particularly if you've been the one invited into the collaboration, if you're the one that's leading it, it's different. You have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more power to look at that. But if you've been the one that's been invited in, sometimes you do have to ask the hard questions like, well, did we not look at this or did we not look at that? And it goes back to what I was saying at the start, the whole area of consultation within the sector. And consultation is really important, but I think a lot of people in the room will say we are consulted to death a lot of the time in the sector. And I do feel sometimes it is, well, we've consulted now, so we can go ahead with what we were planning. If you run a consultation at 9 o'clock in the morning in Dublin, what you're telling me is that you're not that bothered if anybody from outside the M50 attends it. And I've said this openly, at a number of different national organisations, because you have to, if you're going to consult, because consultation is a form of collaboration. So if you're going to consult and you really want to hear people's insights so that you can collaborate effectively, you have to have the right people at the table. So somebody from Longford or Roscommon or Mayo or whoever is not going to make it to Dublin for 9 o'clock for a consultation, particularly women, if they've got children, they've got school run, they've got all of that. So we have to think a little bit differently about how we make sure that people are represented in our collaborations.
And just to flip it a little bit, we've both talked about our organisations collaborating outside, but collaboration should be within organisations as well. So like as a leader within an organisation, how do you foster a collaborative mindset? Because that can happen really quickly in an organisation, especially like you've got multi-functions, you have a lot of things going on. So how do you work on that? How do you foster that?
We have what we call our integrated model of service delivery. So we have this model which has all of the kind of different services and all of the things that we do inside and out. So the advocacy and the leadership, as well as the crisis support and the services that we provide. And that's really how we operate. So I suppose when you look at it internally, a woman could be coming in here for anything. She could be coming in for a training course, domestic violence appointment, a counselling appointment, to drop off the children at the early years service. And then some of the services do obviously integrate. So the community employment service will integrate with the training service in terms of what women are accessing. We also have a unique service here in that if you are coming in for a domestic violence appointment, we have a number of places reserved in the early years service for children of women who are coming in for crisis appointments. So that's something where we look at the two services integrating, because at the basic level, you can't have somebody coming in with small children who's going into a domestic violence appointment and having to discuss very serious issues with the domestic violence specialist and have small children sitting there. So those kind of things where you integrate within the organisation, where the services can complement each other.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it goes back to that idea of output. Your output is the experience the woman has. Everything has to be mapped around that. And is it something you have to work hard on to do you have to set up systems and processes within the organisation to make it happen?
In terms of the outputs?
As in the collaboration, making sure that it's open and happening across the organisation.
I think it happens fairly organically because the one thing about here is that everybody is very focused on outcomes and focused on the outcome for the woman and for the children in the particular services. So that kind of positive collaboration and working together, it does happen naturally.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're about. It's about looking at what's happening outside, and is there something that we can be doing better? Is there something that we can be doing that maybe allows two services to work more closely together, and look at better outcomes and better impacts. But because we are quite an outcome-focused organisation,
I'm hearing like the mission and the values, they're clear, everybody's on the same page and it works towards. What about you? Because I would imagine working in a for-profit organisation, not everybody is, social values, it's a new concept. So how do you feel about how collaborating within an organisation and fostering a collaborative environment?
Yeah, nice question.
Yeah.
But in terms of my role, so I'm the only social value manager in CISC, and there's it's a multi-billion euro profit-making organisation. So there's at least 40 sites being built at any one time in Ireland, and I have to support every project. So 40 projects, there's only one of me and I can't be split. So I need to collaborate with teams. I need to build relationships internally. Every project has got a designated social value champion. That champion could be really interested in social value or could be voluntold to be that champion. In most cases, it's voluntold to be that champion. So I have to find ways in which I can sell social value to that individual and to make it as accessible as possible. So I would change my title tomorrow and call me a connector, a community connector, because that is what I do. I map out the communities, I map out the needs with the support of the communities, and then I give that as a plan to the projects and say, this is what you can do and this is how you can achieve it. And if you do that and you follow this guide, you'll be able to deliver social value. That's a perfect picture. That is not something that always happens. And I have to sometimes drag them kicking, screaming to make it happen. So because there's 40 projects, because there's only so much time in the day, I find my allies and then I work with my allies. And I've seen a number of projects have fantastic outcomes. One being a project in Dublin who has, again, worked with Coolmine Lodge, which is a voluntary rehab facility, and they had nearly a derelict building that needed to be revamped and resurfaced and make it so it's inviting for individuals who are coming in for support. And the project in Dublin said, yes, we can do this and we can get all our supply chain involved. And they've transformed the space over a couple of months. Again, something that they're comfortable with. They build buildings. But the impact that has had on Coolmine is incredible. The feedback that we've received by their clients, their individuals who use the service has been fantastic. And it drives change within the organization. It drives a cultural change within an organization because they've seen positive outcomes and they've seen positive impacts.
Being sound is contagious.
It really is.
When you can see a really good impact. Tell them about the cans.
Simple thing is the bottle return scheme. So everybody is kind of at home saving their plastic bottles. In projects, we've done the exact same thing. One project on the height of a project could have 1,200 people on site. 1,200 people who like Monster or any other drink. But they were disposing it in their normal bins. Then one social value champion who said, why don't we kind of have that return scheme? And since we've introduced a return scheme on one project, we've introduced it in 12 projects now. And we have over 10 grand in donations for that return scheme, just through plastic bottles. which is easily done. And then that's just through the return scheme project. Other local projects, so like there's a project in Kerry who don't have the return scheme. A GAA club is taking their plastic bottles and using it for their donations and their fundraising. So again, it's a community initiative, and it's a collaboration between local partners. The GAA club came up to the project and asked if they could participate in that. And again, it could be something for a community organisation, a youth service, to do the exact same thing, to build an easy introductory partnership, because it's something that everybody does.
So it's finding those champions and those allies where you can find them. We're coming close to time, so I want to ask why, so you're in a really unique position with being in social value and what the changes that are being made in the next couple of years. Why do you think this collaboration is so important for the sector at the moment?
Another nice question. I think, be perfectly honest, I think state funding is going to come to a time where that's going to be reduced and reduced and reduced, and you're going to need corporate actors. And if we get to a stage where there's corporate actors who aren't just ticking boxes, who actually want to see impact, then you'll have positive relationships and positive contributions. And it won't just be a lick of paint on a wall for a volunteer day. It will be change making. And that change making could be partnering to sponsor a program rather than building a building. And again, it's going to evolve, it's going to mature. It has happened in the UK, and there's been some really positive outcomes with social value in the UK. And then there's been some kind of negatives, and it had been turned into a tick the box system. And I think we have to be careful. And I think the only way that we can be careful and make sure that it's not a tick the box is that the community and the community sector is also involved in that conversation and that change.
Yeah, and Tara, what about yourself? What do you feel is the most important thing for the sector, the value for collaboration?
I think quality over quantity would be for me. So for us and for the collaborations that we're involved in, it's all about the quality of them and going back to the outcomes and the impact. And again, asking yourself those questions: do these collaborations align with my values, and are they a good use of our time and resources? But I think it is the future, because none of us can solve the problems on our own. Yeah. We do need to get around the table. We do need to share resources. And I think while, yes, there's a lot of programme funding coming in here from the government, we don't have any core funding. So we do have that social enterprise arm, to generate income to be able to support that. And collaboration is going to become more and more important as we go on. And given the global volatility that we're looking at the moment, like that could be coming sooner rather than later. So you always have to be thinking, you're not just thinking into 2027, you're looking at 28 and 29 and what's coming down the tracks, what's likely to happen with programmes. And sometimes you can see trends happening, and you can see moves away from certain, policies that were maybe in place a few years ago. So I think part of the role as a leader is you're trying to interpret that. You're trying to read the future, really, which is, as we know, impossible. But you are trying to read the future and say, right, we're responsible for, there's 1,000 women and children who are availing of services here every year. We're responsible for staff, for jobs. How do we make sure that we are securing those outcomes, that those services can continue, that people can still be here providing those services? Because the not-for-profit sector, there's a huge amount of emphasis on outcomes for the people that we're supporting and we're serving, but there's also a lot of people who are working in the sector, who do fantastic work. And majority of people are on year-to-year contracts, very, very precarious. So we need to always be looking and trying to think ahead and say, how can we ensure more stability in the sector, not just for people working in it, but naturally then for the outcomes, because we will come up with programmes and we might get a piece of funding for a programme, but it's maybe for a year. Yeah. And what happens, and it's quite unfair as well, because you come to the end of the year, and a year is a very short time for a programme. You come to the end of the year, and what are you doing with this group of people who have come together, who you've worked with and collaborated with for that year? you have to be able to ensure there's something there, that you're not just dropping people off a cliff. So that takes a lot of creativity, a lot of time, and a lot of collaboration. So, but I do think it is the future. Once you're looking at the quality of your collaboration and not being afraid to challenge, because collaborations are great, and sometimes when you're sitting around the table and you think, this is great, we have this program now and we have this collaboration, but you can't sit back, and I think if you stop challenging things, you kind of lose a piece of that leadership. You need to continue to challenge, and there is that. I know we haven't discussed it, but there is also that balancing act then when you are getting funding from the government, but you still need to challenge them on certain things. So that's a constant balancing act, but we try and manage it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm hearing future-proof and probably leaning into your expertise as well. For example, you're about to build a refuge and you just happen to have a giant builder lying around.
The ultimate collaboration.
No pressure. But literally just winked at the camera. We're actually coming up to time, so we always ask people at the end, what's your best piece of leadership advice that you got or that you would give now looking back?
I think I was asked this actually a few months ago, and I borrowed the corporate phrase, which but I borrowed the corporate phrase from Nike, and it was just do it. Don't be afraid. Now, when I say just do it, I don't mean to throw caution to the wind now and be completely irresponsible. But what I mean is, don't be afraid to ask for things. Don't be afraid to try things within reason, obviously. And just what you were saying there, Anthony, about people sending you emails about looking for various things. I have no problem doing that. I have no problem asking for things. The worst that can happen is someone will say no. So whether it's asking for collaboration or asking for funding or asking for, whatever it is, don't be afraid to do that, and be confident about your organisation and the expertise that it has and the position that you hold in the sector.
Yeah. Your advice is brilliant, but you're underselling yourself a little bit, because I know you will email anybody, but you are very strategic. You're prepped. You prepare. And we talked about this. Is that those emails that say, "Can I have money?" are not going to get you anywhere. But if you send an email that says, "Here is my gap. Here is your resourcing." So I think you're incredibly good at that.
Well, do your homework, and if you can say to somebody, whether it's a government department or whoever it is, listen, you have put this in the programme for government, or this is in your corporate plan, we can do this. This is what the cost will be, but this is what the outcome will be. You will get reasonable response.
But make it easy for them.
Exactly.
And I will say, in fairness to you, you've undersold yourself there, but thank you for that. Anthony, what's your best piece of leadership advice?
Take that. But I would also kind of take another step and say breathe. Because there's funding opportunities, there's grants, there's money around, but if you're willing to take the money at any cost, you'll lose the value of the organisation that you're working in. You have to be values driven. You can't be driven by funding. So that would be what I would be saying, is just breathe, take a step back and say, is this worth slogging through another grant application if it's going to redirect the organisation that you're working in?
That's really good. Okay, there you go. I told you it would fly, didn't I? How fun was that? Thank you so much.